morning or this afternoon. We have Kathy Pittman, Pam House with the Galveston Bay Area chapter, Sherry Wilcox with Gideon Lincecum, Terry Hurley with the Coastal Prairie chapter, Bert with Coastal Prairie chapter, Rick Travis with the Blackland Prairie chapter, Nancy with Lost Pines, Nancy Phillips with Goodwater, Lisa A. with the Capital Area chapter, Rich Nielsen with Lindheimer, Jan Dethridge from the Elm Fork chapter, Sam Voltaggio with the Buckhoney's Canyonland chapter, Larry Peterson with Cradle of Texas, John O'Connell with Cradle of Texas, and Laura Gillis with the Rolling Plains chapter. So that's what I can see that's come in so far. And then Mary Pearl and Bert, if y'all are ready with the permissions, take it away.
Thank you. All right, Bert, I've got you all set up now. So thank you so much for hosting this for us, and we'll step out of your way.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank Michelle and Mary Pearl for inviting me to present. Slack has become one of my passions, and you can ask our current president, Terry Hurley, how effective it is for running our chapter. And as we go along, we're going to be switching back and forth between information about Slack and actually what are called Slack workspaces. So you'll be able to, as I told Mary Pearl, I thought about putting together a really nice interactive PowerPoint presentation for everybody. But Slack, like most software nowadays, changes pretty quickly. So anything I put together a month ago would be pretty much out of date by now. So instead, what we're going to do is rely on Slack's own help center, which is a tremendous resource. You can spend days, weeks, months just pouring through everything. In fact, you can become Slack certified, something that I plan on doing in the future once things settle down a little bit. So how many people are using, well, let me back that up. How many people are not using Slack yet, if you can raise your hands? See, Laura Gillis, Rich, Pam. Okay, so most people, and John O'Connell. Okay, John, you guys can put your hands down. And Pistols iPad Pro. Okay, all right, so good news is Slack is very intuitive for you guys. And for you people, you folks that are using it already, this will just help you, maybe give you some tips and just sort of solidify your Slack knowledge. So as far as I know, our chapter is the only Texas Master Naturalist chapter using Slack. I don't know if any other chapters rolled it out yet, but also our state organization, we're using Slack now as well. So I set up both of those, and it seemed to be working out pretty well. And as you'll see, when we look at the Coastal Prairie chapter Slack workspace, it is very active. So different organizations, even similar chapters, may use Slack completely differently. In my experience, what happened was there was a lot of resistance initially to adding what people call something else to learn. But now it seems like the people that were most opposed to it are using it the most. So it things kind of go full circle sometimes. So with that, let's kick things off. If you want to learn about Slack, they make it really easy for you. You just go to slack.com/help. And just about anything you want to know about Slack, from getting started, how to use Slack, where your profiles are, how to cut code. There's even full-blown Slack tutorials that you can take. Workspace administration, we won't cover that today. And how to connect different tools to Slack. So just a little background about Slack to give you some context. Slack has been around for years. It was a startup. And then I think it's almost 2 years ago, they were bought by a little company called Salesforce, which is the #1 contact relationship management company in the world. They own about 40% of the global market. And they purchased Slack as a strategic move. And they're in the process of integrating it more closely with their base product called Salesforce. So Slack isn't going anywhere. I'm a retired IT manager from Chevron, and one thing you learn in IT is you always select tools that are going to be there for a long time. So I know Slack is going to be around for a very long time, and it's very useful. And if you're a nonprofit, you can, and you jump through the right hoops, you can actually get their pro version or standard version for free. And that's what we're using at Coastal Prairie. So with that, let's take a look at, and this is going to be very interactive. If you guys want to ask questions at any time. But Mary Pearl, can people unmute themselves? Is that the way security is set up?
Yes, they sure can.
Okay, so feel free to interrupt me at any time. If nothing else, I'm flexible. So we're just going to launch into this, and it's going to be a combination of interactive, like videos, and me talking about our experience with Slack and answering questions and showing you actual Slack workspaces and how they're being used. Are there any questions before we kick things off?
I don't see any in the chat quite yet.
Okay, great. So what is Slack? So Slack is I'm not going to go by this, but we'll just play the short video because I think it sums things up pretty quickly.
What is Slack? We ask ourselves that every day. And wouldn't you know, we have an answer. Slack is a messaging app for business, yet it's also so much more. It's your company's home for everyone and everything. Your digital HQ. Slack is made up of organized spaces for anything you're working on, so you can move a project forward way faster, share ideas, set deadlines, and make decisions together in a dedicated space. It's productivity on your own terms, giving you flexibility to work the way you work best, so you can collaborate live. Oh, hi. Find information from across your company. Aha. Or create some focus time. And it's a place to connect with everyone you work with, inside and outside your company. So you can bring together the right people with the right context, and everyone can stay up to date. People do their best work when they have a place to work together. That place is Slack. Get started today and transform the way you work.
Okay, how was the audio and video? Were you guys able
That's
to see?
perfect.
Okay, great. So basically what Slack is, it combines a lot of functionality under one roof. And if you're trying to run a business, like they say, or when you hear business in these presentations, it's subject to nonprofit, club, sports team. It's being used for pretty much anything you can think of all over the world. So what it does, it pulls everything together. For example, companies using Slack, they don't use email to communicate with each other. Everything is done in Slack. You can collaborate with people outside of your company or outside of your chapter by adding them as guests. There's even a capability of connecting two Slack workspaces together in something called Slack Connect. So it's very feature rich. We'll probably never use all the tools that are available to us because we don't need them all. Some organizations might, but for the most part, it replaces email, collaboration type software. You can even do like a Zoom type meeting within Slack. You can have a quick chat with people, multiple people, and you can store files. You don't want to use it as your system of record, storing files, especially large files long term, but especially if you're working on different files together, or if it's time sensitive information. Like for example, our membership directors, they keep the latest and greatest member roster, the list of everybody in a chapter. They save it as a PDF and put it in Slack, so it's available to everybody. And as you'll see, you can do really cool things like pin files or messages, so that if somebody goes to a channel, and we'll talk about channels in a second, there may be thousands of things in that channel. Well, if you click on pin, the important things pop right up for you. So they've put a lot of work into usability and accessibility in Slack. It's really well done. So as I said, it makes it easy to connect with your colleagues. You can message anybody inside or outside your organization. And let's talk about channels. So channels are just dedicated spaces where that are devoted to a particular project or say a partner organization or just announcements, things like that. So, and you can create channel, an administrator can create a channel at any time. It can be private, meaning you have to be invited to join the channel, or it can be public, anybody can join. And there's also called a connected channel, which actually connects to another organization. And we're currently not using that. We tried it, it didn't work too well for us, for our needs. So instead, for example, we have someone in the Gulf Coast chapter who participates in a lot of things we do, and we've invited her as a guest. Both Mary Pearl and Michelle are full members of our Workspace, Coastal Prairie Chapter Workspace, so they can see everything we're up to. And we think that's very healthy to have everything just transparent, and it's so far it's working out really well. As I said, it's very flexible. You can use it multiple different ways. It's inclusive in that everyone has access to the same information. If you send an email thread out to say everybody in your chapter, and then someone joins the next day, they don't have access to that maybe an important email. Within Slack, because everything is maintained there and curated, you can just point them to it, or they can self-discover it themselves. Okay. And as I said, there are tutorials and there's a whole help center available. And I find myself coming back here from time to time because I'll notice changes in Slack where they've made things easier, and I'll show you some of those when we get to it. And and they're very good about keeping their knowledge base and their help center up to date.
And I
So
dropped that link in the chat too. So folks, if you wanted to open that up, but it's just slack.com/help as well, if you wanted to bookmark that for further reference.
So any questions about what Slack is before we move on? Okay, so there's a quick start guide. And this is pretty short. We'll go through this quickly.
Welcome to Slack, a messaging app for business. Let's take a quick tour, starting with a channel. A channel is a dedicated space for a topic, project, or team where you can see message history, so it's easy to get up to speed. Add files to a channel so they stay together with the conversation, and record video or audio clips that your teammates can play at any time. Fewer meetings? Sign us up. You can also respond quickly to messages with emoji reactions and use mentions to get the attention of specific people. Keep work moving forward. Notifications in your sidebar make it clear where your attention is needed and where there's new activity. You'll see a badge when someone mentions you or sends you a direct message, and conversation names appear bold when there are unread messages. To write messages for any conversation, you can use the compose button. And whenever it's easier to talk than type, just start a huddle so anyone in the conversation can drop into chat. There you have it, a quick start guide to Slack. If you need help or more information, visit slack.com/help.
Okay.
Welcome to Slack, a messaging app for business.
Sorry about that. So as you can see, it's very intuitive. It's one of those applications where you really have to use it to learn it. And you can look at all this information or read about how to use it. The quickest way and the way to really embed it in your consciousness is to just use it. And you really can't damage anything that can't be undone. As an administrator, you can damage a lot, but as a regular user, there's not much you can damage it. And even if you do accidentally delete something, an administrator can bring it back. So this is what's called a workspace. So for example, Coastal Prairie chapter or a Texas Master Naturalist, everything exists in this one area. And in here, you can click, if you click on this little icon, which is intuitive, to compose a message, it'll be whatever channel you're in. That's where the message is going to go. And there's some nuance to that, and we'll get into that when we look at a live demonstration. Channels, there's a preferred or consistent naming convention that Slack uses. That's what we've adopted, and it's pretty straightforward. Direct messages. So this is another thing that Slack replaces instead of using like Apple Messages or different instant messaging applications like that. You can do it all within Slack. So instead of going to multiple different applications, you open up Slack and everything you need to know about your chapter is there. So it's very convenient, very powerful, very efficient. Also, what's not apparent here is you can say if you have a bunch of channels, you can actually create folders and move those channels on the folders that make sense to you. So you're not locked into what the administrator thinks looks right. You can actually fine tune or tweak the way the channels are laid out. You can even change the, if you don't like purple, you can change it to pink or blue or whatever you want. It's very flexible. So a lot of times you use this compose button to reply or to create a new, what's called a thread. Most people are familiar with threads. Basically, it's just like an email thread. You get a request and it goes to multiple people. You reply, and most modern email applications, you'll actually see them all grouped together, depending upon your view. Well, the same thing with within channels, you can have threads of messages, you can start a new message, things like that. So we talked about channels already. And so one thing I want to talk about, notifications. So you can have as many notifications as you can stand in Slack, or you can turn them completely off. You can even, I'll show you how to set your status, and different statuses affect how or what notifications you get. And we also talked a little bit about direct messages, which is similar to like receiving a message with Apple Messages. Channels. So channels bring the right people together for the right information in one place. There's also security around that. So if it's a private channel, like a executive committee within your chapter, and they want to have private information that sometimes sensitive, only people that are invited to that channel can actually see the information. And it's very visual and feature rich. You can use emojis. You can, for example, this little emoji here, the two eyeballs. That's very, if you want to let someone know, hey, I'm looking at this particular Excel spreadsheet that you just posted, you just put two eyeballs. Or if you approve, you put a little check mark. And so it's very, very flexible, very easy to use. It seems a little overwhelming at first because it is so flexible, but if you give it time, everything starts to make sense. So message field, you can add quite a few things. You can attach files. You can mention other people. For example, you put in @Michelle, it would actually notify Michelle that she's mentioned in a particular message, and she can get directly to it. You can format your messages. If you see here, bold, italic, strike through. You can add links. You can format with bullets, either numbered bullets or just bullet points. All kinds of things. You can even add code snippets in. So it's very, very powerful. You can add video, you can add audio, emoticons, and you can even change the font. So if that's not enough, there's these three dots. Some people call these hamburger buttons. You click on those to get to even more actions. So adding files, you can pretty much add anything, but what works best, we found, is Excel spreadsheets. PDF is absolutely best to use. And it seems like Word documents work well also. And as I mentioned, if you put an @ sign in front of someone's name, it'll automatically give you a choice of people. Say there's more than one Mary in your chapter, it'll pop up a list and you just select which Mary you want to mention. And navigation bar, this is really powerful, so you can go back in history. You can search, and search is very powerful. Once you put a search term in, you have an option to search for people, messages, or files, or all of them. And help is just right up here. It's always available. So as I mentioned, the history, if you click on the history button, it shows you what you've looked at recently. Search, and there are shortcuts on a Mac or Windows. You probably noticed I'm using Safari on a Mac, but everything you can do on a Mac, you can do on a Windows machine. And of course, help is always available. Okay, any questions about this getting started piece?
I don't see any questions in the chat. And I did drop the links for the pages that you've been going through in the chat as well.
Okay. So we're not going to drill down into these yet.
We just got a question. Kathy asked, are there limits to file sizes? Probably at some point, and there's probably different levels of Slack that you'd have to then purchase into if you have really large file storages in there.
Yeah, so my experience that there are limits. I forget the size, but the size limit. But from an overall perspective, you don't want to use it as for large file storage. It's primarily used for like working on, say, Excel spreadsheet with your chapter members, or sharing your member roster as a PDF, things like that, or sharing meeting notes from your last chapter meeting. We also upload recordings, like we're recording this Zoom meeting now. We record all of our Zoom meetings, like our chapter program meetings, and we make them available. But over time, you're going to run out of space. And on our plan, we have the standard plan because we're a nonprofit 501c3, and it just gets archived, and you can still access it. So far, we haven't had to archive anything. So they're quite generous with their standard plan. Unfortunately, the Texas Medicine Naturalist program is not a 501c3, so we're using the free version, which has pretty much the same functionality, it just doesn't have as much long-term storage and a few other things like that.
Yeah, and I found, again, I love Slack's help desk. As Bert mentioned, I just searched size limits and found the article that I dropped in chat, Kathy, with the free versions limit for file storage is 5 gigabytes, app is 10 30-party apps, and 10,000 messages can be viewed and searched, and then it archives into that. So really easy to find that kind of stuff quickly.
Okay, so let's take a look at how to manage your account. So signing in a Slack, well, let me show you this. They make it really easy. So for example, if I go to slack.com, it on my browser at least is cached, so it knows which workspaces, which Slack workspaces I'm a member of. So here's Coastal Prairie with 172 members, Texas Medicine Naturalist, 131 members, Screencast Online, because I'm a geek and a Mac guy. They have tutorials on popular Mac software, so I belong to that. The squares, this has something to do with 3 words. I don't know if I've bored you guys to death with that before, but just go to what3words.com, I believe. It's a really cool application. It's starting to be used by, it's a location way of locating any 10-foot by 10-foot square plot of land anywhere in the world by just using 3 unique words. And the emergency services in Europe are starting to adopt it. And Hog Island, this is a Rhodes Scholar trip we went on in 2019. And this is for the property I'm on now that we're building a home, Monarch Woods. And so our builder, you can use it for anything. So there's a builder and architect and designer. They're all members here, and we exchange plans and things like that. And I'm also a volunteer fireman here in Oak Ridge Ranch. And I haven't started rolling this out to our firefighters yet, but that's on my to-do list. But you see, I'm already set up. So also, the first time you log in like this, Slack will offer to send you a magic link. You click on the magic link and it automatically opens up Slack and pre-populates all of your Slack workspaces for you. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we talked about signing into Slack. You guys probably know how to do that. But sign into your workspace. You can even use sign in with Apple or Google. I like to keep things simple. I just use an email and password. And you can have additional workspaces. You can sign in. You can use a browser. You can use a Slack app. And there's a Slack application for pretty much anything, including iPad and other tablets. And also iPhone, and I think Androids as well. This is something that drives people crazy. If they get too many notifications, it's real easy to adjust your notifications. And I think we're going long enough. We're going to switch over to live Slack so we can see what some of this stuff looks like. Okay, so this is the Texas Medicine Naturalist. You see up here, you see search Texas Medicine Naturalist. So this is our state level workspace in Slack. And announcements, this is something that every Slack workspace should have. Anything important is posted here. So let's see, one message.
I just did that.
Yep. So remember, pros shouldn't be doing that in announcements, but that's okay. And you see this, Carolyn Longlinade put a thumbs up. If I wanted to add a reaction, it's really simple to do that. So this brings up a good point. One thing that I really wish Slack would change is, you see down here, this is called a message area. If I start typing here, and I'll put @ and you see what comes up here. And say I just select Mary Pearl. Let it run. Okay, you see how this basically starts a new thread. So you don't want to do that. And the reason is, especially if you're using Slack a lot, you'll have a lot of posts at the same time. And I may be replying to Mary Pearl here instead of here, and it gets confusing for everybody. So the proper way to do this, and I'll go ahead and delete this, is to what's called post a thread. And most people say, well, that's where am I going to post the thread to? Well, what you can do is come over here and see it says reply and thread. And it opens up a whole new window for you off to the right. So now when I type in here, Mary Pearl is a threaded reply. And then by default, when you press enter, it sends it. But I always find myself pressing enter by mistake and wanting to go to the next line. So the way I have it set up is I press enter and it goes to the next line. And that's all configurable. And I'll show you how to do that in a little while here. But you can always just click this triangle here, this green and white box, and that'll send a message. Or in my case, I press Command return in a sense. Okay, so now you see how much cleaner this is. If we close this thread window, now instead of there being another whole header and everything, it's just very clean. And if somebody replies to my reply, it just says 2 replies, and it shows a little picture or image rather. While we're here, you can see there's 191 people that are members of Texas Master Naturalist Workspace. And if you're not a member yet, just send me an email and I'll add you. And if you click here, you can actually search for people. So if you want to search for Carolyn, there she is, twice, which is not a good practice, but I'll talk to Carolyn later. No, I'm kidding. Or say Terry. She's in there twice. Not a good practice. I'll talk to you later. And you can also look at settings. So it tells you posting permissions, like only admins and specific people who can post. Everyone can reply to messages. Only admins can use @everyone mentions. So @everyone is really powerful. If you want to send something, blast out something to everybody in your workspace, you can use that. But it can get annoying if it's not important. So that's turned off right now. Huddles, members can start and join huddles on this channel. And again, we haven't really used huddles that much. Terry, have you used huddles on our workspace at all?
No, I have not, Bert. But I think that could be very handy for us, since we're just about all of us use Slack. I would appreciate a lesson on that one day, maybe.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
And then you can also integrate Slack with other applications. But most of this is for Pro, and we don't have. We can integrate some things like Google Drive and some basic things, but more advanced things you have to upgrade to Pro. Also, the About tab. There's always a description. It tells you when the channel was created, and there's some basic information. Okay.
Hey Bert, I was going to go back to the two bad eggs, Carolyn and Terry. They have 2 accounts. Not to call y'all ladies out, but the reason why I believe they have 2 accounts is they both have a personal Terry email address and then a role email address, a Terry president email address. For example, Terry, I'm just calling you out. So there is a distinction, and there is a reason why they both have 2 different emails or 2 different accounts. And it's because how they joined was they chose to use one email address or the other. Mm-hmm. And I think best practices probably moving forward would be to use your one that you maintain yourself, like Mary Pearl email address, not a state coordinator email address, because that email address gets passed on to the next person each year.
Right. Yeah, that would be my preference. It's a lot, my mind, it's a lot cleaner, and then you get around some permission issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not calling Terry and Carolyn out. We know why.
I would never do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
She'll get me later. Let's see. So these are all the channels, and as I mentioned before, it's very easy to create. When you create a folder, for example, right here, I want to click on, see, add channels. I don't want to do that. I want to click on, oh, that's a paid option, sorry. Don't worry about that. Forget I said anything. But you can also star channels, or basically that's favorite them. For some reason, I think Carol and I were talking, and I wanted to remember to go back to that conversation, so I started things like that. So you can also see all your unread messages. I'm all caught up for now. You can look at threads. So this is that thread that, this practice thread that we just had. And direct messages. So this is things that are just like Instant Messenger or Apple Messages, they're directly to you. And I didn't mention this before, but security is the big deal in Slack. So if you send a direct message to somebody, only you and that person can see it. Even an administrator can't see it. And there's no way to get that information. Now, one caveat is if you have the enterprise version, which we'll never have, there is some advanced techniques where if there's a lawsuit, an administrator can go back and retrieve things, but we don't have to worry about that. You can save items. Slack Connect I talked about. And again, it doesn't apply to us. And if you click more, you can see all channels, files, people and users, and apps. So let's shift gears and talk about search. And this is really powerful. So we'll just go to announcements maybe. So I go up here. Right now, it's going to say find, and you see that hashtag in front or a pound sign? That means it's a public channel. If there's a lock, like right here where it says the president's channel, you see this little padlock, that means it's private. So those are the two basic channels. There's a third one, but don't worry about that. It's something we don't use. So say we want to search something, just come in here and we'll say, we can search by person, say at Mary Pearl. And this will pull up everything that has Mary Pearl as a participant in it. And that's for, see it says 43 messages, one person, that's Mary Pearl, 0 files and 0 channels. So if Mary Pearl had posted a file, it should show up here as well. And again, people is Mary Pearl. Now say if we wanted to change this to search all of, instead of right now it's just searching this one channel, we could see. We go to the top level. Oh, I can show you this as well. So this tells you information about, say if you're wondering, well, how do I get it to it on the website using a web browser? You click up here on the name, it gives you this drop down. So it's just txmn.slack.com, and it parallels with the website txmn, or it used to be txmn.org. Total messages, it tells you which plan we're on. We're on a free plan, and you can invite people to text a message list. So I know Mary Pearl's done this, and what this does, it sends it to the administrator by default, and that person approves it. If you're an administrator, you can create a panel, a channel, and this is preferences for the entire workspace setting, and we won't go into this stuff. And you can also sign out right here. So let's go back to announcements.
All right, we had a great question in the Zoom chat. Pam House with Galveston Bay Area asked about who would be the most appropriate person from their chapter, multiple people from their chapters to join the state Texas Master Naturalist Slack channel. At this point, the state use of Slack right now is limited, just because it's not a monitored active platform that we communicate on regularly, but it is available for chapter leadership to communicate with each other as they need to. Again, it's not monitored by the state. Michelle and I are not watching it every day. We are on it, but it's not something that we have the capacity to kind of monitor and check every day. So for now, if Pam, if you're interested in joining it, maybe some of your chapter leadership, your advisors would like to join it. There are different, as you can see on the left-hand side there, channels for presidents, new class directors, membership directors, VMS admins. We can add those types of folks into the Slack platform workspace for now. And then as we hopefully build some more capacity, we can open this up to further audiences. Does that answer your question, Pam? And that's really on the state one. If I think something else that Bert's kind of alluding to here without saying it is, this is a really great tool that his chapter has used as a chapter really successfully. And so if this is something, if common communication and file sharing and working together on projects is an issue within your chapter, this might be a solution for your chapter to start a new Slack workspace, a Galveston Bay Area Slack channel that, or Slack, not channel, I keep using that word mistakenly, a workspace, which is what houses multiple channels across it.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, I like to have sort of a practical hands-on run through before I start trying to convince other people that it's a good place for us to go.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to be able to at least go to the TMN site and get a sense of how it works.
Let's get you and some of your chapter leadership signed up for the state workspace so that y'all can see how it functions. Obviously, we don't use it as near as much as Bert's showing you the Coastal Prairie chapters use of it and their multiple kind of channels that they've got here. But that'll get you comfortable and get your leadership comfortable with it.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I should mention, not every chapter would want to use this. Some chapters are more than comfortable with just using email and sharing files through Dropbox. So Slack really shines when you have a lot of interaction between team members. For example, this, as Member Pearl said, this is our Coastal Prairie chapter workspace, and you can tell because it's up here, and you see these are my favorite channels that I've starred, but you can see there's a lot of activity. We always have a channel for each of the annual meetings so that we can plan. It's very useful. AT for advanced training, questions about advanced training, or AT director answers questions there. For people who propose new AT opportunities, chapter program meetings, if we go here, this has all the information about past and upcoming chapter program meetings. Forms, this is where we used to have our membership roster on a website, and we just, it's too insecure. It's password protected, but if you know anything about hacking, that's not really that big of a barrier. So anything sensitive now we keep in Slack. And I don't know if I mentioned, but Slack is very secure. It meets 3 or 4 federal government requirements or standards for security. That's why it's so powerful. If you post something in Slack, unless somebody can get your user ID and password, it's safe. We've even created a in memoriam site or channel rather, jobs. So we have some chapter members that are looking for environmental type jobs and jobs in general. We have media coverage, meetings and minutes. So you can tell we started out with just some basic channels, and then it's just blossomed really well. We have a channel for mentoring. Meeting minutes and reports is very useful. You can, it's some of the stuff is sensitive, so you don't want to have it on the website. And we even have all of our weekly and monthly newsletters that are posted here as well. We're partnering with Houston Museum of Natural Science, Sugar Land campus. So everything having to do with that is here. We have a project around birdability. We have a Buffalo Run Park project, a new Daily Park project, Willow Fork Park, that's easy to say, project. And then you always want to have something called random. So anything that doesn't fit anywhere else nicely, you can just put there. Seaborn is huge for us. That's our premier project. I don't know if you guys heard about the Big Sit annual birding event. We have that set up. Nature Fest every year, except last 2 years. All that information goes there. And this is just for grants. Technical host, this is a throwback to, I don't know if that's going to bring back bad memories about all the, this is something that Mary Pearl posted when we successfully completed the technical host challenge for annual meeting 2 years ago. This is something really cool. A lot of our chapter members were having trouble with listserv. So there's a way in Slack you can create an email that goes directly to one of your channels. So now anytime Mary Pearl posts something on listserv, it shows up here in our Slack workspace. Virtual service project, advisor. We have the channel for each new class. Communication planning, communications, email sign up genius. So we have sign up, we use sign up genius, and a lot of people are having trouble logging in to see who signed up. So again, we just set up it's really easy to do. We set up a unique email address that comes right into here, so you can see the status of anybody signing up. Really powerful. Executive committee, I'm going to open that. Finance, insurance policy, pretty much anything you can think of for a chapter is on Slack. And then each class has their own channel going back to 2018. And it's really helpful. It helps develop a sense of camaraderie with them. For example, if you look on here, they share, this is posted by Shannon. She's our vice president as well as our new class director. And you can see all the activity going back and forth. This is just with the 2022 spring class. So again, Slack can do whatever you need it to do. We have help channels for IT, membership, Slack, VMS, VSP, Zoom. We have different teams with different projects, and of course, direct messages. And then that's about it. Any questions about how Coastal Prairie chapter is using Slack? And Terry, jump in at any time.
I would like to say a couple of things, Bert. One thing that Bert has done, when he creates a new channel, you can see how he's organized different projects, different teams. And so that also makes it easy to find what you're looking for. He's got a series of help channels like help-Slack, help-website, help-IT, and project-Seaborn, projects-school gardens, signage, brochures. And that has really helped to keep all of our channels organized. And it helps you to find what you're looking for. Another thing that Bert had mentioned about each class has its own channel. And that really has been one of our best successes for Slack. Shannon is a power user of Slack, and she posts everything that has to do with each and every class on Slack. And as Bert said, that really helps to keep all of our new class members connected to our chapter, not only while they're in the class, but also afterwards, because you can go in and post to say the spring 2022 class and say, hey, I've got a project that needs some volunteers. And, it's your new class that is, one of your best sources of volunteers for various projects. And you can just post to that channel and, and it keeps them connected, and they start using and start posting things to their particular class's channel. And so, it really helps to keep them connected, and it helps them to continue to become initially certified if you can keep them connected. And Slack is a great way to do it. They post videos, Shannon posts videos, the class members post videos, pictures that they've taken. And, it's a great way for them to kind of show off what they're doing nature-wise. And it really has been one of our best successes. And we're getting a really good conversion rate on our new class members who go carry on and get initially certified And also, you know, the help is fantastic. If I have a question on Slack, I just post it right there. Hashtag help/Slack, and Bert will see it, or some of the other power users of Slack will see it, and they'll answer the question right away. It's just been a huge help for our chapter. Communication is almost instant because you can have a Slack app on your phone.
I was just going to ask Terry if you would talk about that, or if Bert wants to talk about that. There's also a great question from Lisa that Bert, I want to bring you back to, because I think that'll help to kind of close out the discussion. I do want to be aware of everybody's time today. But if you'll talk about the app, and then I'll ask Lisa's question.
Sure. So as Terry mentioned, there's an app for your phone. That right now I'm looking at Slack app on my iPad Pro. Pretty much it runs everywhere, even runs in a web browser. So very easy to use. And Lisa asked about how hard was it to get people to accept it. Well, Terry can attest, we had a lot of resistance at first, but we still have a few people that refuse to use any kind of new technology. So we can't, if there's something important, we'll send them information via an email or attached to our weekly bulletin. So there's no perfect solution, but Slack comes pretty close. One thing I didn't mention is that we're also using Google for Nonprofits, and we have our own domain name, coastalprairie.org. So I'm able to set people up with the coastalprairie.org email address, which really helps when we're sending email and we want to look professional. So if that's something you're interested in, you can let me know. If you're a 501c3, there's some hurdles you have to jump through, but it's not impossible. Did that answer the questions? Oh, do we do a presentation of the whole chapter like this? From time to time, we put on what we call Slack attack training. And I'm probably overdue, right, Terry? I need to put on some additional training. Also, we're putting together an IT team. It's kind of been put on hold the last few months, but I'm cranking that back up. And that way, instead of just having one person maintain all this, we'll have multiple people.
Are there other questions for Bert? And y'all feel free to unmute if that's easier as well. So some of the take homes, oh, sorry, Carolyn, one more thing. One of the take homes that, that I'd like to ask or request everybody that's on the channel or on the Zoom today is that if you're not on the President's channel and you're a chapter presidents this year, let's get you added. You can email myself and I'll add you, or you can email Bert. His email address isn't in the chat today. And then that way we can kind of start to get familiar with, start using that President Slack channel as we need to. Sorry, Carolyn.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to ask Bert, do you ever anticipate Slack taking the place of your weekly bulletin?
Unfortunately, no, because we have certain people that won't use Slack. Mm-hmm. It's a diminishing number. I think eventually, maybe 5 years from now, we'll have everybody on Slack, but it's a gradual process.
Right. Thanks, Bert.
Sure. So while we have a couple of minutes, I'll just show you this. Won't go into detail, but it's, if you click on your icon on the top right hand side, you can set your status. Say if you're going to be vacationing, you can set that, and it becomes a little palm tree next to your name. And also has Z's, meaning that I'm not available. You can set yourself away. And if you notice, let's see, where was that? Let me undo this clear status.
I just sent you a direct message, Bert, so you could show what the status looks like.
Okay. Yep. Let's see if I change my status to set myself as active. Now I should have a little green dot next to me wherever I show up, like up here. So let's see, this is better. So you see both myself, Mary Pearl, and Michelle have little green dots. That means they're logged into Slack and they're available. And if I come back here and I set myself away, I have to go back here. Where was I? Now you see it's an empty circle, meaning that I'm not available. And there's a way to, from here you can set notification preferences and things like that, but there's a lot of good documentation online. I won't bore you with the details.
One last thing, Bert, before we close out for today, we've got another question. If you could show everyone where the president's Slack channel is.
Sure. So it's right here on the channels. It says presidents, but you won't see it unless you're a member. So because it's a closed channel, and but if you can request access, either Michelle or Mary Pearl and myself can add you to it. So currently we have a bunch of people in here, and some people probably need to be removed, but that's what it looks like. And it just looks like any other channel, but again, you can post all kinds of nice things like tables, JPEGs, pictures, things like that. So very useful. Did that address the question, Michelle? Okay. Oh, one quick thing, if you click on channels and see, where is that? If you select channels and then browse channels, if you're not a member of a channel, you can actually scroll through all of them that are available. And I'm not sure, but even the secured channels may be available. I'll have to check that. Terry or Carolyn, can you check that since you're not administrators? Well, you're both members of the president's. That wouldn't help. Is anybody not in the president's channel, but they're on this workspace? Okay, guess not. Well, that's all I had, guys, unless you have any other questions. Okay.
Bert, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bert.
I've got another meeting I gotta jump to at 1, and it's 1. So just wanted to say thank you once again.
Sure, my pleasure. And I'll go ahead and stop recording.